The Summer Game Fest is literally days away, and I wanted to try to get this out. And I wanted to bring this out a couple weeks ago, but I wanted to wait because other announcements came out, new reveals and things like that, and there's constant trailers, new character reveals, new surprises, remakes of nostalgia games like the Gex trilogy that's making its return for on June 16th that I'm going to be playing from an old school PS1 classic. And what are the chances of getting a PlayStation All Stars 2 sort of reveal? It's been quite a while. I played this game a long time ago. I have an old playlist when I was making videos, getting into the channel and things like that. It was a lot of other characters, and I wanted to have this design on display for something to look at with all the potential new reps that you guys can see from Jin Sakai, Astro Bot, Aloy from Horizon, even The Last of Us like Ellie, right next to Aloy, right then and there. I wanted to add Joel and many other characters, Marvel Spider-Man, Crash Bandicoot, and Spyro the Dragon, for example. Some of the characters that y'all see, basically everybody that y'all see on the screen, has yet to be able to get into PlayStation All Stars. And I was surprised when the first game of how Crash Bandicoot and Spyro didn't even make it into the game when I thought they were probably going to be base roster. But a lot has changed when it comes to the games that they have gotten access to with new IPs, with all different types of different games, with new characters that have come to life and have taken the world by storm, even for characters like Astro Bot winning Game of the Year. Like it, I think it was much deserved because it's a game like no other. Sure, it's similar to Mario, but it's so much charm to it. It's so much fun to play, and it takes you through all these different worlds of all the different worlds of the PlayStation legacy of all the worlds of all the generations of the PlayStation gens from PS1 and up all the way up through to the PS5 and more. So I wanted to just come out with this video as a discussion video, a wish list, and a predictions video. And I don't know if we're probably gonna get one. If we don't get one announced, that'll be completely fine. I'm not sure how long this is gonna go, but I'm gonna have timestamps in this live premiere, and you guys can chat about the characters that you guys want to see added into this game if it was to come to fruition, if this game was to become something real. And something I also want to just bring out right now, I'm doing this on Tuesday, and PlayStation has a state of play tomorrow at 5 p.m. for Wednesday. So maybe this game could be at the Summer Game Fest by surprise, or maybe it could have some kind of appearance tomorrow. And I'm also anticipating Resident Evil 9 or some kind of brand new Resident Evil title to make its appearance tomorrow at the state of play. Maybe some Astro Bot DLC and so on and so forth. Maybe some other surprises that they got cooking up. We don't even know what's gonna happen tomorrow, and it just so happened to pop up today and get announced. So it's scheduled for tomorrow. If you guys don't know about the next state of play, but we're gonna start getting into the characters and talk about the potential of a PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale 2 or a PlayStation All Stars 2, because the first game was originally called PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale. And it was originally it was exclusive to the PS3, only a PS3 game. We didn't get any sort of sequels. We didn't get any other. We got a couple new characters that were added into the roster, but it didn't go on. It didn't last much longer with post-launch content. And I'm gonna be getting into all that. This roster wish list, all new features, and just different predictions that I think of characters that can get into the game for newcomers along the side of other characters that can get in. And a little bit of a fun fact that some people probably don't know if you have not played PlayStation All Stars before, they already had third party franchises in PlayStation All Stars from the very first game, from Bioshock, Devil May Cry, Tekken, Metal Gear Solid, and Dead Space. None of those franchises were owned by Sony, so they were already, the base roster already had third party characters from its base roster, and you would think it would be the other way around, where third party characters would come in the near future for future DLC, for paid content or paid DLC. But games like this had a lot of potential, and it was so different because all these different characters from different franchises getting involved in this game. But I'm just gonna run through the characters, all the characters that from the base roster for this game is gonna be listed in the description alongside of the timestamp. So if you don't want to watch the full video, if you just don't want to listen to me ramble about the characters and things like that, you could pick between this session with the different timestamps or what portion that you want to listen to for this video for new characters, newcomers, and all the different things that I would change for this game, for new features and things that I would add. So we're just going to talk about the base roster itself for all of the 24 characters that were in this game. 24 characters. This game had a base roster of 24 total characters, and there was nothing else after that. So that's also including the DLC. So 24 characters at max for the first game if you haven't played it. And I'll just run through the characters for y'all. So we had Big Daddy from BioShock and Cole MacGrath from Infamous, Colonel Radec from Killzone, Dante. It was a completely different version of Dante. It wasn't the Dante I wanted to see from the original, that one that started it all from Marvel's for Capcom's Devil May Cry series. We had a completely different remake. The Devil May Cry remake version of Dante got into the game, which was fine, but once it had some kind of representation. But Dante was in it. We had Evil Cole, so it was the good Cole and Evil Cole, so they had their own little moves. So with the color depiction, because with Evil Cole, if you play Infamous, his energy that he would really be able to unleash with his powers would turn red if you decide to go the evil route, and if you decide to be a protagonist, it would be blue for the good Cole. So Cole MacGrath and both Evil Cole were two separate characters in this game, so they all had their own little moves, their own unique movesets, even though it's the same character, which I was surprised where it wasn't like a skin change. But I feel like they just could have added Cole MacGrath, but just by himself solo, and someone else could have got in outside of just Evil Cole, just with two of the same versions of the characters, but two evil, one good, one evil. We had Fat Princess. It's an old PS3 game. She made it into the game. Heihachi was also in it. Jak and Daxter as a duo. We had Kratos from God of War, Nariko from Heavenly Sword, Uncharted's Nathan Drake, PaRappa the Rapper, the OG classic. You gotta believe. I would love to see a new game from him, but I don't know if they're gonna make one. Raiden from Metal Gear Solid. So we didn't have Solid Snake. See how he was in Super Smash Bros? We got Raiden that was in the game. Ratchet and Clank, Sackboy from Little Big Planet, Sir Daniel Fortesque from Medieval. I love that PS1 classic. Sly Cooper was in it. We had Spike, Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal, Toro, and then that's the base roster from outside of the DLC. So that's all 20 characters that I just ran through. Now, the 4 DLC characters from the base game that was added for paid DLC was Emmett Graves, Cat from Gravity Rush, and then Isaac Clarke from Dead Space, and then Zeus as an additional God of War rep. So there was 24 characters to really be able to max up this roster and finish up this roster to close out. And after those 4 characters from Zeus, Emmett, and Cat, and Isaac Clarke from Dead Space and things like that, all 4 of those characters, there was nothing else that really got into the game. So that was the end of the newest content, and as far as content for characters that got in and things like that. So now that was the base roster. So I just wanted to do a full recap of all the characters that we had from the base roster, or what it was like for people that are probably curious. So that list is going to be also in the description. Now I want to start talking about new PlayStation IPs, new characters, newcomers to join the roster if we were to get this game for this portion of the premiere. So for this list, I got Astro Bot, and it's just the characters that y'all basically see on here, but I wanted to expand. I didn't want to just settle with these two, with these characters being the newcomers only. There's so many other characters that can get in to be able to expand this roster. So Astro Bot from Astro Bot himself, Jen Sakai from Ghost of Tsushima, Deacon St. John from Days Gone. I wish we had another game, but they came out with a remaster instead. Deacon St. John would be pretty cool to see riding around on his chopper and being able to have all those different weapons and guns that he used to take out the freakers from the Days Gone game. Aloy, Joel and Ellie, I added as a duo. Some people might disagree. Would you guys make Joel and Ellie as a duo, or maybe separate characters? I feel like Ellie can handle herself, but I think it'll also make sense to have them fight together, so you can switch between Joel and Ellie, so they can share the same damage percentage and share the damage together. But you could be able to add all types of different characters. They can just be, it's just like see what they did with Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank. There were two different duos in the main roster, so I think there's other stuff that could really be able to. They could do more for another additional duo like Joel and Ellie together, but maybe they can be separate characters. Sam Porter from Death Stranding. Divers from Divers Suit. A diver soldier can be great with all the equipment and all the different things that they can do from the Diver series. Laura Croft, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon. I'm still surprised that they never got in. These are all the new characters and newcomers that can just join this game, just running through this list. Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot that I mentioned. Nathan Hale from Resistance. Anybody play the Resistance games from the PS3? And then from a classic, I wanted to mix it up and make the roster a little bit different because I've seen people don't even really mention some of these classic characters from the old school days, from the original classic PS1 era. Tone from Dark Cloud. And then, for example, as a little classic character, he almost reminded me of Link from Zelda a little bit. Tone from Dark Cloud. Eve from Stellar Blade could get in. They can even add a Bloodborne Hunter. So I just put Bloodborne the Hunter, or the Hunter from Bloodborne. So that can represent the Bloodborne series from PlayStation. I love this game, the Returnal. Returnal was awesome. It was a roguelike game that I really enjoyed. Celine from Returnal will really be awesome. I think she'll be a really good character and one of the characters I would definitely main. And then, anyone play the Ni no Kuni series? It's a JRPG series. So I went with Oliver or Evan from the first or second Ni no Kuni series. Ni no Kuni 1 had Evan, and then Oliver, the king himself from the Revenant Kingdom, was from the sequel itself. Tomba from another PS1 classic like Tomba that I think belongs in this game. I think they'll even have the guts to even try to go for a Resident Evil character. So we got I went with Resident Evil's Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, Wesker, Leon Kennedy. Some of those characters can probably end up getting in as a Resident Evil rep that can really be able to show up as a new additional character to be able to be added into this roster. Concrete Genie's Ash. Kana, she's really good in Kana, the Bridge of Spirits game. I really enjoyed that game. I feel like Ash from Concrete Genie could be really unique because he can create all types of stuff with his drawing, being an artist, and his art and his creations come to life. So they could definitely be able to help him out in the fight. So his moveset has a lot of potential. Ash from Concrete Genie, for example. I just haven't seen people mention him. Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII. For a Final Fantasy sort of remake consideration, Cloud Strife can probably be able to get in the game. I know he's in Smash already, but I'm sure they would probably want to add him again for Square Enix, for someone for that series. It's iconic from the Final Fantasy series. Mortal Kombat, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero. Sure, they'll probably have to take the blood out because I'm sure they probably won't have the gore in PlayStation All-Stars. A classic character like Jersey Devil that I haven't seen anyone mention. I don't see anyone really talk about this game too often when it comes to Jersey Devil. Jersey Devil was from the PS1 era I grew up playing this game. He might have some cool little movesets that he can probably be able to put together, being able to fly and glide across the screen and really just come up with some combos in midair, and he can really be able to get away. And he's also pretty fast in the game with some different techniques that he can use. So I definitely would go with Jersey Devil as a PlayStation 1 additional rep to get in for a newcomer. And then, since we already got a little bit of some other fighting characters like Heihachi from Tekken, maybe they'll want someone from Street Fighter, for example, like Ryu, to be able to represent the Street Fighter series. So I think they could probably do a collaboration with Capcom, and maybe Ryu and Ken could probably get in, Chun-Li at some point, maybe some other characters like M. Bison to add in an additional villain. And the funny thing is that my next portion, I want to get into the villains because I don't want to just focus on all these heroes that I just mentioned, from Eve, Spyro and Crash and Sam and all them other ones, Joel and Ellie. All these characters that y'all see on the screen are all protagonist characters, so I didn't want to mislead and just focus on heroes. We need some more additional villains to get into this game. So I went with several picks that I also listed for this premiere, like Neo Cortex from Crash Bandicoot, Nasty Nort from Spyro the Dragon. I would love to see both of them get in. Dr. Nefarious from Ratchet and Clank, Clockwork, who is obsessed with the Sly Cooper series and trying to destroy his family and things like that, Clockwork would be a really unique character to see. And I also went with Zoran Lazarevic from Uncharted. I think he's an iconic villain that could be picked up for this series. Sephiroth from Final Fantasy, and I also mentioned M. Bison from Street Fighter already. So just additional villains from these series that can get in to as bonus reps to really be able to join this roster. So I think this will be some good little pickups. And then just to slide in some additional ones, I went with Quan Chi and Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat. They could go for Shao Kahn, but I don't know if they're going to probably end up adding so many Mortal Kombat characters if they end up adding them at some point. Maybe they could do something like that. And I also went with Virgil from Devil May Cry, Dante's brother. So he's a split personality of Dante. So he has his own agenda, his own plans, and his own little schemes, and he walks his own path. So I think Virgil would be a really nice character for Devil May Cry fans out there to really pick up from this roster. So it's just a couple of villains that I wanted to just add into this for this roster. So it's not just pro heroes. It's just nothing but heroes and oversaturated heroes from all these different series. It's a lot of new characters that are protagonists that came out with new games for, but they can have their own iconic villains to boost up this roster, and it can have a good variety. And I feel like this list can go on and on for bonus reps like Revet from Ratchet and Clank's Rift Apart. So much more characters can get added to really be able to beef up this roster, and many more that can get in. So every character has their own little set of enemies. They can even add more Crash Bandicoot villains like Crunch, who was a villain at first, being controlled by Cortex, things like that. They can even add Hunter with his bow and arrow. He could be a playable character from Spiral series. See how they could just keep on trying to expand from different characters in different series. They could continue to add from different series. So the list goes on, and the roster can continue to get bigger. They can even go as far as adding some other third-party characters that people would probably least expect to be in this game, and maybe some other classic characters like Chrono Trigger. Chrono from Chrono Trigger can be able to get in from a JRPG series, and many others. Maybe even some characters from the Tales of series that can get into this game. Now, just to close out this premiere, I didn't want to just focus on just characters the whole video. I wanted to talk about gameplay changes and a full-on discussion about what they can do to make this game a little bit better, and add on some more not only returning content, but just new stuff that the game was lacking and things like that. And someone who has owned the game since the beginning and gotten to play as all the different characters, and just getting the concept of what the game is like and things like that. Some gameplay changes that I want to talk about for this last portion. The one thing that I really liked the most about PlayStation All-Stars was the rival scenes. Every single character in that roster from the PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale game, the first game, had a rival. It was really awesome to see that. And I think it was Kratos and Sweet Tooth, or Needles Kane, which I think his name is. Sweet Tooth's rival was Kratos. And you guys got to check out some of these rival scenes if you haven't seen them already. It's just so unique because I think one of my personal favorites was Bioshock. Well, Bioshock's Big Daddy and Sackboy. And I forgot the character's name, but she walks alongside of Big Daddy from Bioshock, and she calls him Mr. Bubbles. I like that rival scene, and I guess he got a little bit jealous because she really liked Sackboy as a new best friend that she could be able to take home with her, and it really triggered Big Daddy, and it triggered off the battle from there. So every character had their own little story and their own little rivalry with a certain character. Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter, for example, were rivals. That was some of the best cutscenes ever. You guys got to check that out if you haven't. Even if you haven't played it, you can look up the PlayStation All-Stars rival scenes and really be able to see how each character can react to each other, and they had a rival of their own. So those are just some of my personal favorites. Big Daddy and Sackboy, there's rivalry. Kratos and Sweet Tooth, Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter meeting each other for the first time. They can bring this back. What would Jin Sakai say to Spider-Man? What would Ellie say to Aloy? You see what I'm saying? Just how would Spyro react to Crash Bandicoot? Two legendary, iconic characters from all the in video game history being able to talk and interact with each other and meet each other for the first time. That's something that I loved about the PlayStation All-Stars game. And none of these games like Super Smash Bros., Brawlhalla, and all these other platform fighters, they didn't have that. That's why I think this is something that was something that made this game special and a great memory because of these rivalry scenes. It's nothing. It has been. I was just trying to say this. I haven't seen this done like no other platform fighting game like Super Smash Bros. Of course, they had the Subspace and Mystery, one of the greatest stories. But this game has interactions where these characters have rivals, so you're gonna run into someone when you play as Dante, Kratos, Cole, Nathan Drake from Uncharted, Nariko from Heavenly Sword. Every character, Radec from Killzone, had a rival. Every single character had a rival, and you were going to run into them at the end of the story of whichever character that you play with. And it's always different, so there'll always be a different interaction and a different cutscene, because if you're playing as, just with Kratos or Needles Kane, you could play as Kratos and get a completely different cutscene in comparison to playing as Sweet Tooth. So if you do a story with Sweet Tooth, you're gonna get a completely different cutscene and a completely different scene with the rivalry when you run into Kratos at the end of his story, for example. So it's not just the same thing. Depending on which character you choose to do story mode with, you're gonna get something different from that particular rival, from their storyline, depending on who you're playing as, from your point of view. So it's really something that I really wanted to start with. I would love to see rival scenes return in a new story mode for each new character and all these new faces that can get into the game. I wonder who their rivals would be. Astro Bot can run into Sackboy. They can mix it up. Spider-Man talking to Jin Sakai. It just goes on and on. Each character in the PlayStation All-Stars roster had a rival, and this was just definitely one of my favorite parts of the game. So this is something I want the most to return outside of just all these characters that I mentioned, because of all these new characters that never existed can interact, and new ones could be included to make them so much better than the previous game. Now, those are the cutscenes, the rival scenes, and the story mode portion for the changes. Super attack eliminations that I want to talk about really quickly. Players had to attack opponents to build up their meters to levels 1 through 3. So no matter how many times you would hit the opponent, you could know all the combos in the world with some of these characters that had some of the best ones, like Kratos and Dante, and Radec with his sniper that builds up the meter so quickly, because you could just sit in the back in the corner and just snipe everybody with Radec, and you can easily get your level 3 super, which was one of the best in the game, to rack up kills and knockouts and things like that. You have to continue to attack the enemies or attack the players to really be able to build up your meter. So each character had their own specials, and this was the only way to score points. So maybe this was something that maybe hindered the product. Maybe some people didn't really like the fact that you had to just keep on relying on supers to really be able to eliminate your opponents. It's not about, this game didn't have a percentage meter whatsoever. It was all about how many supers can you successfully be able to hit on your opponents in a 4-player multiplayer in these stages to really try to rack up the most knockouts and get the most kills before the time runs out. That was the whole concept of this game and how you score when you play this game. So that was the only way to really get ring outs in this game. So ring outs and supers, I feel like should both be included for this potential sequel if we get one. So even if we don't, it's completely fine. But if we were to get a sequel for PlayStation All-Stars 2, they should add ring outs and supers so the players can really have another way to really be able to eliminate the opponent. So you can ring them out, or if you want to use your super, that can also be an alternative method to really be able to eliminate your opponent to try to get the win and try to get the W. And that way you're not just trying to spam the same move to build up the meter, because some of these characters had certain moves that you can use to really take advantage. And I think it really affected the balancing with some of these characters, because you would run into the same characters that could build up the meter the fastest, like Sly Cooper, Radec, Dante, Kratos, and many others. Even Sackboy had one of the best level 3s in the game, where he turns everyone into bubbles from Little Big Planet, and all he has to do is jump into you and you're dead. So it was just so much different abilities that these characters had that could really be able to outshine some of the other characters that were in the roster for PlayStation All-Stars. So hopefully that gets changed. But I think players would be more happy with being able to have both. So that way Supers alone doesn't make it boring and bland. So it can stand out and still be a lot different from other platform fighters being able to use Supers along with ring outs. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention, new items can be added from all sorts of games, and all the other old items can return from games like Patapon that they had, the Resistance, Marker Kree, even though he wasn't a playable character, the protagonist or the hero for Marker Kree, they had items from these different PlayStation games. Patapon, Resistance, Marker Kree, Killzone, Ratchet and Clank, is so much more that I would like to see added. So those are all the different changes that I would probably just really be able to bring up as far as a wish list, and all the different changes that they can implement outside of just the characters being the main focus. They can really be able to make some gameplay changes and really be able to beef up these stories. And then these other characters that get in for newcomers can have all types of different new rivalries. It'll be awesome. I definitely want to see this happen. I don't even know if it's going to happen today, since you guys are probably going to see this today, which is the day of the PlayStation State of Play, or maybe even at the Summer Game Fest. We still got a chance. We might end up seeing something like this. Maybe it'll be called a different game. Who knows? Maybe they'll do something else with a completely different PlayStation crossover. But those are all the characters and all the different things that I could possibly want as far as predictions and for this game if it does happen. We don't know if it's gonna happen. We don't know what they're cooking up. It could be almost anything that could get showcased tomorrow at this, or basically today at the State of Play. When you guys see this, it could be anything at the State of Play today. And then on top of that, we still got the Summer Game Fest. So there's still all sorts of surprises that could really be able to come to fruition. Even if it's not an All-Stars 2, it could be some of these characters that y'all see on the screen might end up getting some new reveals, like a Spyro 4, for example. I wouldn't even be against that. But this is just something that I wanted to really bring out as a wish list, just to get excited for Summer Game Fest and just start talking about the potential of this game. This game had a lot of potential. It could have had so much more, but I really honestly feel like just the roster itself kind of slowed things down a little bit, only having 4 DLC characters, and then on top of that, only being limited to super eliminations. Well, being able to knock out your opponents with supers, and then certain characters just really being able to take advantage and be able to dominate no matter how much time you put into the game. If someone's using that said character and they know that same strategy, they can really be able to beat you and be able to take advantage and be able to rack up those kills and knockouts and win every time with a high probability. But let me know what you guys think of this idea, and would you guys be against seeing a PlayStation All-Stars 2? Maybe that one, maybe there probably won't be another one, but I definitely would love to see this show up. If it's not at the State of Play, I would love to be surprised at Summer Game Fest with a brand new PlayStation All-Stars 2. We're just going to have to see what happens. So we're just days away, basically 3 days away, or basically almost 2 days away from Summer Game Fest, and then we'll probably be able to see some new games at the State of Play today. So we'll see what happens. So I definitely would love to see this make a return. There's so much more that they can do, and this game can continue to go on. New stages and more for new PlayStation IPs.